I had this disturbing thing happen. I was trying to come up with the legal filing, and I printed it out so that I could do the final copy edits so that the next day I could submit it. And then that night, I ended up getting assaulted, and I ended up being made homeless. And in the course of being made homeless, I ended up losing my cell phone, which had a bunch of evidence on it. The next day, when I had to file it, it was reported that there had been an alleged hack to a Facebook account connected to somebody who was serving in public office that was actually referenced in my legal filing. But the way it was presented was that somehow the sexually explicit picture and inappropriate material ended up coming up on his feed. And he said, the actual politician involved said, well, that she was a stripper, basically, that she was involved with adult entertainment, and she had been stalking him. And that what happened was a staffer accidentally posted it. This was the day after I was assaulted and the day that I had to file. And instead of being able to do what I wanted to do that day. Is this true? Dated July 4th, 2021. It's a letter to the editor. I agreed with Senator Ted Cruz last year when Colin Kaepernick used Frederick Douglass's speech to condemn the 4th of July celebration. The senator said to read the whole speech. On July 4th of 2020, I composed on my own computer, without anybody else involved, a series of arguments that were both Second and 13th Amendment arguments, specifically related to certificates that were handed out at the time of the Revolutionary War to people who had given to the war effort. And how those certificates were discount purchased by people who were primarily lawyers, by the way, and were involved with activities associated with the First Bank of the United States, and used those certificates they had purchased at a discount from people who had supplied effort matters related to the war effort as part of the first bank stock exchange or the bank stock issue for the United States. And that in that series of issues, there was, among other things, criticism between Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Rush, who was the director of the First Mint of the United States, criticizing this practice for a number of reasons. In fact, they were livid at what had happened. You know, this is a kind of history we may not know a lot about. Is that the kind of thing that's meant by read the whole thing? Right? Because it's very important that it had to do with football. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Kaepernick from the San Francisco Bay Area? Okay. Maybe I just seem like I'm self-absorbed, except I'm not. This is dated for July 4th of 2021. Somehow I came across this evening in what appears to be somebody maybe doing some house cleaning, right? 3 consecutive weeks worth of Sunday editions of the Dallas Morning News. And I'm alarmed enough by this. I'm also alarmed that there was an article on July 4th that was talking about incidents and matters in the Permian Basin that are probably the number one issue that people in the state of Texas need to be addressing, including in consideration of the problems we have with, among other things, education, right? That the crisis that is being discussed about the Permian Basin is one of the most important matters on a national level, but especially for people in Texas. And there's absolutely nothing in the last session about it. And there does not appear to be anything in this so-called special session now that addresses the crisis that's being reported on. But is that because of what else I'm seeing? I got 3 things here. And this is all I'm going to do. I'm just going to read the headlines. First of all, I was personally witness last year on August 6th of 2021 to an incident involving an industrial accident at a place I tried to obtain a job. On page 8A of the July 18th edition, it discusses an event that happened 40 years ago, July 6, 1981. Buildings across 30 square blocks of downtown Dallas went black and manhole covers burst skyward. Some workers stumbled to safety by descending their building stairwells while others stayed put, waiting out the power interruption. A mere week and a half later, on Friday, July 17th, a Dallas Light and Power Company transformer exploded beneath Commerce and Field streets. Yesterday would have been 20 days after July 17th. That means today's day 21. right? Yesterday was the last day of that other special session. Today's the first day of the new special session. But what was 20 days ago today? July 18th, 2021. 20 days has a very important significance, right? And what else am I finding that was discarded today? Well, this. First page, tenure track frustrates black faculty. I've been saying for years that when the word frustrate comes up, it's a trigger word for something. This is the headline on the front page. But what's more concerning is the jump head, which says, give me a second, it's right here. Oh, it's right here. 12A. Schools set the climate, professors say. Schools set the climate, professors say. That's the jump head from the first page, which says tenure track frustrates black faculty. It has pictures. Three pictures, two of the same woman, one of another woman, both African American women, discussing their situation. Here on page 12, by the way, it says paying the black tax. It discusses this understanding of what is identified as, some faculty will call it a black tax, said Professor Yasmin Irizarry, a tenure track professor at the University of Texas at Austin. Then it describes what they understand this tax to entail, which includes having to do things without compensation above and beyond what your work duties are, as some form of diversity, and in an effort to try to participate in a manner that is supposed to be identified as voluntary, but is understood as being obligated. As she quotes, don't risk relationships or risk support. Okay, all right, well, the problem is this, right here. And it's the week before. The week before that headline in the Sunday paper, page 2, July 11th, 2021, page 2, climate change killing people. There's no fucking way, I believe, any competent editor of the front page, section A, Dallas Morning News, even and especially one that only works the weekend edition or the Sunday edition, didn't understand absolutely 100% what those implications were. There's no way. There's no way I believe that at all. And not only that, you got a picture on the front page, full color picture of what appears to be mostly African American women discussing critics of election bills speak out at Capitol. Right? But then on page 2, what's right on the other side? And you have to wait for another week to find out what and how they've assessed the climate. Right? But that's not all. Because then we get to the same thing here. In an issue that also discusses the California fires, what it also is, Sunday, July 11, 2021. Finance ministers target tax havens, 15% minimum levy on corporate profits. So, regardless of what else you see, and by the way, there's a lot of very concerning news in here, including July 4th. Let me tell you what, 20 days. We're working a 20-day today, which is 21 days after another thing. But from July 4th to July 18th would have been 14 days. That would have been an appeal period. But we're 20 days after what would have been the appeal period. So maybe somebody filed a charge or had a grievance, and then they had an appeal. What happens if somebody doesn't like the results of the appeal? That's what that says to me. And it was out in the garbage, as if somebody was trying to ditch the evidence. That's the third reference just today. In my very, very, very small, minimal world of being able to contact people, it was very important for someone, twice, directly, to let me know that someone's shredding or dumping evidence today. The third indication was somebody erased my calendar. right? I mean, I got this right here. Would you consider this evidence? There's a lot of other information in here that's very disturbing. See, the problem is, because of what they've been doing at the library, I can't readily go down to the library and read the newspaper like I used to. What used to be the public library right over here, which, by the way, is featured in an article in one of these editions, well, they've closed that off to the public. Is that because they have a black tax? Do they have a tax that's appropriate per demographic that's allowed to be at the now exclusively available facilities on site at that university? What about the library downtown that has put an illegal call on all of the books I've checked out after I arrive on site at the library to see that they've culled the stacks and destroyed what were actually records, public records, put on the put into the public realm for us to be able to get information we need, up to and including information on cases that have been tried in the courts concerning people in and from Texas. That information is gone. They've taken it out of that library, and the only other library you could have access to in Dallas to get it has been made private and exclusive. And this is what I'm finding in the newspaper. Why are you throwing it out? Are you trying to cover it up? Are you traumatized? Because we're not really in a position to be discussing the prioritization of mental health care right now, right? And we do actually have what appears to be a very, very extreme pending environmental crisis in the Permian Basin, right? And the year before, I was on site in Houston and issued a forged document, a fraudulent document, that not only misrepresented that I was mentally ill, and not only mischaracterized me as being available as some form of asset speculation connected to gambling associated or wagering associated with the police pension system, but it also served to be used as a derivative for whoever was availed of the public financing portfolio, perhaps as, I don't know, a public-private partnership to traffic me for uranium. And the year before that happened, where was Ted Cruz? Where was Ted Cruz on May 11th of 2016? You all made sure, within 72 hours of me being on site in Dallas, you made sure to let me know exactly where Ted Cruz was exactly 1 year before I was branded by the cops in Houston to be used as a derivative for trafficking in connection with uranium smuggling. When that woman from the Permian Basin tells you there's a pending environmental crisis, I think it was more important to listen to her than to make jokes about football. I'm not saying that sports and sports competition aren't important, but allowing for politicians to mock the women they're setting up to torture and potentially put in the way of being killed is not something anybody should accept. I am not accepting it. I hope you won't either.